Hi, everyone. I'm Vicki Eppler. I'm the president of Congress Park Neighbors. I want to thank you all for taking the time to come and join us tonight. This is our annual neighborhood meeting for Congress Park Neighbors RNO. Denver passed the registered neighborhood ordinance back in 1979 to create a bridge between residents and the city and create a conduit of information that was intended to go both ways. Congress Park has been an active RNO for over 40 years. Many of the residents in Congress Park are not aware that we have an RNO or what the function of an RNO is. So I'm going to try and address some of that tonight. We are not an HOA. We do not have rules about how the neighborhood should be. As an organization, RNO do have rules they have to follow. And one of them is recording our meetings. And we're recording this meeting right now. And one of the things that we do to get more people involved and aware is we have a website, and our meetings, both this one and ones historically, are available on our website if you happen to miss one. Our function as an RNO in Congress Park is we have bi-monthly meetings, and we invite speakers on topics that are pertinent to our neighborhood. They could be city officials. They often are people running for office or representing ballot issues. And we strive very hard to present both sides of the issue, often at the same meeting, so neighbors can get that information right then. We're an all-volunteer organization. And we have a website, we have a newsletter, and we organize events when we can. Obviously, COVID has put a damper on some of that, but in the coming year, we're hoping we can have more events and go back to having our ice cream social. We will probably keep our member meetings like this as Zoom meetings for several reasons. One, they can be recorded and people can go back and watch them. And because we found it allowed a lot of people an opportunity to attend meetings that otherwise might not have been able to get out of their home and do that. So I'm going to talk for a minute about our bi-monthly meetings. And I think that will give you an outline of the work that we do all year long. In February, we had Joe Wood, who is the representative from Diane DeGette's office, made a presentation. He also lives in our neighborhood. Hannah Ruiz came in from the police department and talked about crime issues. And we had a meeting with solid waste, specifically around the trash issue that we have been trying to negotiate with the city on since a year ago, last June. In April, we had a presentation by Jeff Bader about the All-In Motel and their request for Dura funding. And they were able to, even though All-In is outside of Congress Park statistical neighborhood, it's across the street. And the the development of the all-in has an impact on our neighborhood as well. Candy C. DeBaca, who had an opposing view about Dura funds, attended that meeting. And we had a presentation on the new trash system where you pay as you go. And we announced a petition that a neighbor, Andrew Clark, was activating around trying to get the attention of solid waste. In June, Beth McCann came and spoke to us. We met again with solid waste. Elizabeth Epps came. She was a candidate at the time and spoke to us. Hannah Ruiz from the police department was there and gave us an update. And we also had an update on the pool renovation. Everyone had hoped the pool would be open this summer, and everyone was anxious to hear how that project was going. In August, we had a presentation on the 12th Avenue Bikeway, which crosses through Congress Park only on a short corner from Garfield to Colorado Boulevard. But it sparked a lot of conversation about other bikeways and making the connection and the lack of continuity in the bikeway plans. We had a presentation on safe open space on the Park Hill Golf Course, explaining their position. We had Leslie Taragawa, who is running for council at large. We also made an announcement. Chris Hines had his first town hall meeting around the trash issue in Congress Park, which followed a couple weeks later and was well attended. In October, we had Hannah Ruiz again to talk about the ongoing crime issue. And then we had several people who were speaking on ballot issues, the library issue, the sidewalk issue on the ballot, and Travis Leaker was here talking about his run for the council seat at large. We had hoped to also have the representatives from Shared Streets come, but unfortunately, they didn't show up that night. As president, I have spent the better part of this year working on trying to understand why solid waste chose to move trash, recycle, compost, and large item pickup to the street. It has negatively impacted the majority of neighbors who have to perform this movement of bins out to the street for over a year and a half. And their arguments have not been rational. And when you're living it and moving it, and it's conflicting with bikeways, school drop-offs, bus stops, trash in the streets, parking, pedestrians on Colorado Boulevard, it just didn't make sense. I wrote a letter to the auditor and requested a meeting with him, which I had, and I think 6 people from the auditor's department attended that meeting. And I talked to him about the huge inefficiencies of what they were doing. They have quadrupled the number of miles that they're driving, along with many other hazards. As everyone who should know now, if you have not read the auditor's report on where solid waste is at, our current situation is explained very fully in his report because solid waste is failing. They have vehicles that are aging out in 2 years. They have retiring people. There's extremely low morale, and they don't have enough money to support the increased services that they're going to charge for. So I would suggest you read that. And then, of course, today in Denverite, there was an article about how solid waste is bringing on a private contractor to help deal with the recycle. But our problems with solid waste are not particularly unique to us. The movement of bins to the street is highly discriminatory because we are the only neighborhood that is doing it. I also wrote a letter to the city attorney's office alerting them to the multiple liabilities that have been opened up by injury of neighbors moving bins, by having solid waste employees come on to private property and possibly falling and being injured, as well as the handicap obstructions that are going on at bus stops and along Colorado Boulevard. So I've spent a great deal of time on that. I'm also on the Neighborhood Advisory Committee for Denver Botanic Gardens, which is the interaction with Congress Park and the Botanic Gardens to deal specifically with neighborhood problems that are brought on by the Botanic Gardens events. I am now going to introduce you to our other board, couple more things about the RNO. We are neutral. We try hard to present both sides, and we do not take a stand on an issue unless we do a survey and ask neighbors, and we may do several, as well as have meetings. And then when a majority of neighbors have an opinion they want to express, then we do. We support the Teller Backpack Program, which provides food for kids, and we do matching funds with them to support that food need in our neighborhood. We're a resource when people are trying to figure out which entity to contact. We're called, and we often join stakeholder groups around the pool. We have a member that's very active in BRT. So now I'm gonna introduce you to Maggie Price, who takes care of all our website functions and posting. Maggie.
Hi, I think my video isn't working very well, so I'm sorry about that. I've been doing the website for some time. It looks a little dated as I look at it, so I anticipate changing that a bit so it looks a little bit more modern. I've been also sending out email blasts. These blasts go to everyone who signs up. It's not necessary to be a member to receive our communications. And we feel that that helps the neighbors to know what's going on, and it's more cohesive. We also have social media that we use, and I can answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, our next board member is Tom Conis, who takes care of membership. He's a secretary and helps distribute our quarterly newsletter Tom?
Good evening, everybody. Vicki was correct. I'm the board secretary. I'm also the membership chair and newsletters. And I'll pass it back to Vicki.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Wendy Rich Moraski is not able to attend tonight. She sings with the Denver Symphony Chorus, and it's Christmas time. She publishes our quarterly newsletter, as well as many other issues managing that. Our another board member is Myles Tangalin. Myles, would you like to talk about what you have done this year?
Hi, everyone. Certainly, thank you, Vicki. And thank everyone. I do thank everyone for their support. Again, we are a nonprofit. So we're just all putting our blood, sweat, and tears into this. And we're providing a service for the neighborhood. So I'm here to talk about a few things. I've been involved with the East Central area, or East Colfax Bus Rapid Transit. I've been involved with this probably over 6 years, and I'm actually on the stakeholders committee. And the project basically is going to transform Colfax. So what's going to happen is the design is the 2 center lanes of Colfax will be exclusively for buses. So no cars will be allowed. Only left turns will be allowed at intersections that are controlled, and that means they have a stoplight. So what that means for Congress Park is we've got an existing stoplight at Steele and an existing stoplight at Garfield. They're planning on putting 2 stations, one at Fillmore and one at Madison. And the other stations will be at Colorado Boulevard and Josephine in York. So basically, what's going to happen is as you're moving west, you won't be able to make a left turn because those will be exclusively bus lanes. So only at those 4 intersections will you be able to make a left turn into Congress Park. So what that means is those streets are going to take the full load of traffic that moves to our south. So those residential streets will be Fillmore, Steele, Madison, and Garfield. Now, the main issue, well, more in the project timeline, this is a city, state, and they're actually going to ask for federal fundings. They're going to go through a NEPA process, which is an EIS light. And they're actually required to do a 30% CD set to request federal monies. They're not sure how much money they're going to get, but they're going to be doing that process shortly. So in doing that process, they've hired a traffic engineer, and they've done calculations to present to the federal government how this will cause less accidents. It's a safer way of transportation. It will be faster, and the city focuses on you'll save 5 minutes moving down. You know, if you're on the bus, you enter and leave on all doors because you hold the ticket ahead of time. And so what I was interested in, I've been asking about since February, is those 4 side streets are going to get a tremendous amount of traffic. You've done your traffic calculations. What is the impact going to be? What happens when those left turning cars hit 14th Avenue? Will the traffic back up? Will you need to put controlled lights on 14th because now you're having traffic throughout the whole block because people can't get out of the neighborhood? And then in the East Central area plan, in which I was on the steering committee, they are proposing putting a bike lane on 14th. So there's a couple of different things happening. But what what I was very disappointed in was they wouldn't talk about any of the traffic on the side streets. The traffic engineer wouldn't respond to any of my questions. They will not talk about it. So what I'm planning on doing is reaching out to the local neighborhoods who are the streets that are going to be affected by this, as well as reaching out to Diane DeGette, our state senators, even our governor, because it's going to be state money as well, and try to come up with some strategies of getting them to release this information, because it's going to be important to know what's going to happen. Those side streets are going to be very, very impacted. And so what will they do? I mean, they possibly could remove parking from those streets. We just don't know. And so that's kind of where I'm going to be going with this. There's a lot of potential implications. And unfortunately, in the past, the city has a few meetings and they basically say we're done, when the majority of people don't even know what's happening. And that's my biggest concern here. They've had 4 meetings, and I think they think they're done. I don't think they're done. They may be spending a couple $100 million on this. I think we need to talk about strategies of getting out, meeting people, going door to door, and letting people know before the construction begins. Now, there's a few years before this happens, but as we're in the design phase, I think it's very important for people to understand what's happening. And I just want people to know, if they're concerned, I am concerned, I want them to know who they can contact about their concerns and bring those issues to light. Now that is going to change the fundamental nature of Colfax itself. So getting in and out of Congress Park is going to be quite dramatic, and I don't know what the implications are again. So along those lines, the other thing to talk about too is we've got a lot of changes. This is more for the future, and community planning's working on changes to duplex. No, I'm sorry, not duplex. Accessory dwelling units. They currently now have a size limitation, and they're rewriting it to open that up and enlarge how an ADU is defined. They're also talking about removing requirements for having the homeowner live on site. And unfortunately, I think we may end up with a scenario, again, this is me speculating, like the slot homes, where the city said, oh, we're making some minor changes, and it allowed the development of 4 residential units in line on a single lot. And it took a few years for city council to plug the hole. But in changing some of these requirements, we need to look forward that the city may be thinking, oh, we're going to let you build a 1,000 square foot ADU in the back. But what happens if you start tearing down the main house and the ADU and building an ADU and a new house at the same time? Do you basically have a duplex? And now you've incentivized the redevelopment of single family properties. And on another line, this came up at the East Central area plan, and city council member Chris Hines supported it, enthusiastically supported the plan. But what that plan calls for, and again, this is something in the future, is the changing of all single family zoning into multifamily. See, the planning department put this in Blueprint Denver, that all low density single family zoning will be replaced with multifamily zoning. And they haven't passed it yet, so they were bringing it forward. They put it on hold, but just remember that is on the table. And the implications would be in incentivizing the redevelopment of a single family property. If you tore down a bungalow and you could build 4 units or even a duplex, Why would a developer not do it? And just along the lines of our neighborhood, Discover Denver did a survey, and we were deemed historically, architecturally significant for our period, a very intact neighborhood. And so if we want to preserve our neighborhood, who we choose to represent us and lead us is really going to matter. The choice for our mayor and also our city council. Do they represent our values? We live in a single family neighborhood. The majority of Congress Park is that. What do they support? Would they support changing single family to quadplex? Would they support upzoning, more upzoning along Colfax? Because I'll just relay a story I've talked about before. I was on the,
Myles,
yeah.
we need to kind of keep moving.
Oh, okay, so I'll just relay a quick story. So I was on the steering committee for East Central Area Plan, and I live near Colfax. I live in a 1908 Denver Square. And when I was talking to the planner, he basically said, it doesn't make sense that you live where you live. It should be apartment buildings. So I leave that question to you. Is it going to be up to city planning to say, you all shouldn't live in these single family homes, it should be apartments? So that's where the representation of who represent us will really matter along those lines. So thank you.
Thanks, Myles. We have 2 new members that joined the board this year, Judith Cohen and Sarah Komppa. Judith, could you talk to us about why you joined and what you're hoping to accomplish?
Sure, but before I do, Vicki, when I'm done, I'd like you to remind everybody that if they are not physically capable of taking their trash down to the street, there is an option, and that's information that should be shared with all of our neighbors. My interest is in community and building community, and I have become aware that actually across the country, but in the city as well, feeling of community has declined dramatically over the last 40 years. So I have some ideas that I haven't put into practice yet about building community and want to continue that. And any of you who have thoughts about how we can increase the sense of community in Congress Park and get to know some of our neighbors even better, please get in touch with me through CPM.
Thank you, Judith. Sarah? Sarah also joined us this year. Sarah, talk about what.
Sure. Hi, my name is Sarah Komppa. And just building on Judith's note, I would encourage everybody to share their camera and turn their cameras on as a show of kind of community a little bit here. My name's Sarah. I'm an architect. I'm a mom to 2 little boys, and we love living in Congress Park, and really look forward to, we've been here 3 or 4 years now, I think. So thank you, Peter. Thank you, Bryan. Thanks for folks for turning on your cameras. And I really look forward to kind of building on what Judith said, encouraging community, encouraging a lot more in-person events for the neighborhood organization, just to get to know people and encourage increased participation. So I think, this is a good showing of 18 folks, but we know there's a lot more people in the neighborhood. So hoping to get a lot more communication going. I got involved originally by helping Wendy with the newsletter and helping to format that and get that published. So that was my entry.
Thank you, Sarah. A couple of things that came up that Judith mentioned. Many neighbors continue to have trouble getting their bins to the street and returned. And solid waste, if you call 311 and request it, will have a driver come and get out of the truck and move your bins and return them for you, which you should utilize if you need help. The second thing I didn't mention that I want to make sure neighbors are aware of is when Wayne New was our councilman at the end of his tenure, he gave us some money that is earmarked for specific projects. We have some monies for a safety project, and we have some monies for preservation. They can only be used for those projects. The safety monies almost got used around Teller Elementary. That was another project that we worked on this year. The lack of signage, good signage, trees blocking signage. There's no handicap access on one corner. And we were willing to, the school reached out to us and we were willing to engage with them and try and help them. But in the end, Denver Public School stepped up and helped them. So that was great. But if there was a project, it would have to be presented very clearly. Then please contact Congress Park Neighbors and we can discuss it. Beth McCann is going to join us for a little bit tonight, but she's not here yet. Our board is voted as whole, up or down. The ballots will not go out until December 20th. Maggie, could you talk about the ballot process for us?
Sure. In order that we're able to allow everyone who met the deadline date to vote, we'll be sending these ballots out via email at SurveyMonkey on the 23rd. We have moved our meeting up to this date to accommodate not going through the Christmas season, but we wanted to make sure that people who had joined during that period of time were able to vote and not be constricted by today's date. So in order to keep with our bylaws, that's why it's been done. On the 21st, I believe, the ballots will go out to all the people who are at this meeting who are members. So we really appreciate those of you who have come who are not necessarily members, but want to learn what we're doing and hope that you will join us soon.
It's really helpful when you join Congress Park Neighbors because the monies that we collect from membership, we use to fund our website, our newsletter, our ice cream social, and Teller backpack program. So it's important not just to attend our meetings, but also to join the neighborhood organization. Beth McCann isn't here yet. Does anyone have any questions or issues they want to raise? Go ahead, Bryan.
Hi, everybody. How's everyone doing this fine December evening?
Bryan, was there an issue you wanted to raise?
Yes, ma'am. You mentioned the trash earlier. My primary issue with the trash are the bins that get unfortunately placed on the sidewalk on Colorado Boulevard. And I don't know if many of you are familiar, but especially south of 13th, really, the sidewalk gets really narrow, particularly at 11th. So whenever residents have to put their bins out, there's no way for anybody, especially somebody using a wheelchair, to navigate that sidewalk while those bins are there. So I don't know the reasons why our bins are on the street, but at the very least, those areas along Colorado Boulevard, we need to figure out something else, ideally in the alley, but if not, maybe on the side streets. That's the issue.
Bryan, I want you to know I addressed that very directly with solid waste, with the auditor, but also with the city attorney, because you're absolutely correct. They're in the alleys where the city is asking for the bins to be moved to the street. In this situation, Colorado Boulevard, that very same alley has commercial trucks go through it, and anyone walking on that sidewalk has to either walk in the street or climb over a bin, and there is no handicap access. And I was told by the city attorney that's just not true. So remember when you vote. Have we heard from Beth yet?
I don't see your signed in yet.
Okay. Are there any other, let me say something about the bikeways too. That has been brought up in many directions around Congress Park, the park renovation, the pool renovation, the playground and tennis courts, as well as the other connections throughout the neighborhood. That is an issue we are aware of and we bring up whenever we can, but it appears the city is very siloed. So the 12th Avenue Bikeway has nothing to do with the pool or the bikeway through the park. Unfortunately, that was not part of the master plan. But I just want you to know, as an organization, we're fully aware of it and are trying to find a way to address it. On the trash issue, Bryan, why they're making us put them in the street has never been clear. It's not about the trucks, because the day before it happened, the trucks were driving in the alley. So I guess we're gonna, if we don't hear from Beth here in a minute, I think we're gonna say goodnight. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to come and participate. I hope you will vote when your ballots come. If you have a particular issue you would like us to explore, or someone you would like to come to a meeting and speak, please reach out. I try to schedule any comers that come and talk to me. In February, we'll be having a meeting that has Save Outdoor Spaces and West Side Development talking about Park Hill Golf Course. And we will also have Tim Hoffman, who is running for council at large. I'm sure there'll be others, but right now, that's what we have. Do we have a nomination from the floor? Bryan, could you turn your microphone on?
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Julie Meyers if Julie is willing to accept.
Julie?
I'm sorry, what are the nominations for?
For board of directors, of course.
Yeah, thanks for the consideration, but I'm just doing too many other things right now. I do try to come to the meetings though, so I appreciate it. Thanks,
Thank
Bryan.
you, Julie. Thank you for attending. Anyone else? All right, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting. I'm
There was Peter, I think.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
that's okay. Hey, I just had a quick question. How do
Sure.
we hear about more candidates? So at-large candidates, Chris is running, and then the mayoral candidates that are running in the April election.
Generally speaking, we don't have the mayoral candidates. Usually League of Women Voters organizes something. Any council candidate that reaches out to me, I am happy to try and schedule time. Chris Hines has not attended our meetings or reached out. Pretty much.
But mayoral candidates, we wouldn't be able to hear from them either.
Probably not at our neighborhood meeting. They would probably choose a larger format. Sorry about that.
We could, I mean, we could make a, we could email them as a group and ask if they'd like to come and make a statement.
Right.
We have done that in the past. And we can always see if they're willing to come and talk to the neighborhood.
I mean, there are 190 RNOs. So I would be surprised that a mayor is not interested in hearing from, talking to 190 RNOs.
You bet. A lot of times, the way that they work it is through INC, Inter-Neighborhood Cooperation, and the League of Women Voters, who have forums with that. But in the past, we have invited some of the mayor's candidates and council people to attend our meeting, and if they come, they're welcome.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to reach out. I'm not sure how many people are running for mayor right now, but I think it's like 15.
I'm thinking it's over 20, so we may
And
not want to.
I think so too. And
We may not want it to
may want to
Peter,
wait till
involved.
we may want to wait till it kind of thins out a great deal, and then select those that are willing to come.
Peter, it's a great idea. And I'm happy to entertain it. The election is what day in April?
The
April
4th.
4th.
See, and so February, we have a meeting, and then we just need to see if we had a demand. We could possibly schedule a March meeting. Our April meeting would fall after the election. So I'm totally open to it. It's just historically, the mayoral candidates have wanted a larger venue for it. Have we heard from Beth?
No, I've not seen her come into the
She had a
meeting.
previous meeting tonight, so maybe it just didn't work out. Again, thank everyone for coming. Please vote when your ballot arrives, and have a great holiday, everyone. So I believe we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, Vicki.
Thank you.